All right. Hey, everybody, and welcome once again to another episode of the Remarkable Coach podcast. I'm your host, Michael Pacheco, and today with me, I have Todd Sullivan. Todd is a Christian, a husband, a dad, a pop, an athlete, a coach, and a retired naval officer. He's called to help make people and organizations better, and he does that by working with people as individuals first. Todd, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Michael. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, appreciate you joining us. So I always like to open up the podcast by simply inviting the guest to tell us a little bit about yourself and what got you into coaching.
Yeah, so spent 30 years in the Navy and did a lot of mentoring early on as I was growing as a leader, and that kind of evolved into some coaching because I realized I wasn't trying to make a bunch of mini me's, which what mentoring I felt like was doing, and coaching kind of expanded that. Got asked what I wanted to do when I retired, and I said, I don't know how to quantify this as a job, but I want to help make people and organizations better. And I took a job in corporate HR, and I was really blessed to sit next to the director of learning and development. We grew a great friendship, and one day he comes to me and says, you're having these $3,000 conversations all over the building. And I kind of looked at him, and he's like, you're coaching, people. I was like, well, that's just part of the role. And he handed me a book called Coaching for Performance by Sir John Whitmore. Mm-hmm. And he said, no, this is a real vocation. And I guess I was sheltered, spending 30 years in the Navy. I didn't realize people did, true coaching as a profession. And I was like, oh, well, maybe this is something I should pursue. And kind of lit the fire, and took me a little bit. I'm a little bit slow learner sometimes. Took me a couple of years to really launch into it. But it was from that day forward, it was really there, the forethought of my mind that I should really look at doing this.
That's awesome. Who do you work with? Who are your clients?
So I work with entrepreneurs, small business owners, worked with some pastors, which I kind of think of as kind of the same, kind of fitting into those same two roles. And then that up and coming leader in an organization, somebody who's on track to be a partner or C-suite, those are really the people I just absolutely love working with.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I'm actually, yeah, it's funny. I'm meeting with a pastor later today to talk about coaching now.
Yeah, it's rewarding, because what the payback of them doing their job better is.
Sure. Yeah, that's awesome. Tell us where and how do you get your clients?
So I grew pretty organically, right at the beginning. I finished my very first module of the coaching certification, and I was in this small business here in town that I'd done business with, pretty routinely. And I was in there with a friend, and I said, yeah, I'm going to be a leadership coach. And the owner said, hey, Todd, I want to hire you as my leadership coach when we start. And I thought, well, this is going to be super easy. That was the only really easy, client that I brought on. Everything else has been word of mouth or referrals. Mm-hmm. And I'm just now realizing that I've got to get a better business development footprint and marketing. But I love that I've been able to grow slowly and really pour the time into my first, few clients.
Nice. Do you have plans for growing your business and doing biz dev and marketing and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I've started looking out Q3, Q4 of this calendar year, mm-hmm. just at some ideas, working with a couple of different people to help, fine tune some things for me, how to market better. Mm-hmm. Haven't really studied marketing since 20, 30 years, of undergrad type work. So I'm excited to bring somebody on to help me to do that. Awesome. So it's coming. I've just been, I've not been in a rush, and I'm blessed, after 30 years in the Navy, the government sustains me fairly well. So I've been able to do this in a timeline that made sense for myself and my family and things that, have happened in our family for the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good stuff. What sort of things specifically did you first struggle with when you first started coaching?
Saying this is what I charge. That was tough for me because, all the coaching I had done, whether it was in the Navy or, when I first, in that first company, the people that I was going and kind of coaching through some events was just part of what I did. And then I started thinking, if you go to a lawyer, you get a will or something tangible. If you go to your accountant, you get your taxes done. I started thinking, well, what do I give people for that money? And so that was a tough mental block that I had to get past. And I told you about being in that small business where that business owner said, "Hey, Todd, I want to hire you." 6-7 months beyond that initial conversation, I went into that small business. The business owner was away, at a conference, and that business was running better than I had ever seen it. And I thought, that's what I deliver. I don't deliver a tax return. I don't deliver a will. I deliver organizations operating better. And that helped me get past that mental block.
Nice. How, so that's kind of, I can see how you had difficulty there because, organizations operating better is a little bit nebulous, right? What exactly does that mean? How do you define that? How do you make the pitch? I mean, I guess you said you get a lot of referrals, so you're clearly doing something well. Came to that conclusion that that's what you delivered. How did you define it?
So one of the things that I, talk about right up front in my initial conversation, whether or not I'm a good fit to work with someone to partner alongside them is, what do you want out of coaching? What has driven you to this conversation? It's interesting. I'm working with a real estate syndicator and left corporate America last September, started this real estate syndication in October. And we sat down and started coaching in October. He had this goal of closing his first deal with, at the end of his first year in business. So September of this year. And all of his goals were these really long, these 1-year goals. And we started breaking those down into tranches, into quarters, into months, some into weekly. We kind of changed the way he viewed his metrics, instead of 5 of something being a green light, maybe 4 to 5, just putting those bands in. And I'm really happy to say that, he's under contract on his first property. Got under contract 6 months ahead of schedule. And so, to me, that's making his organization better.
That's great.
And it all, was through just opening his aperture of how to tackle, daily, weekly, monthly business and how to how to not look at not hitting a exact mark as a failure, but giving himself some grace as he was growing something from the ground up on his own.
Nice. What talk to us about some of your wins, some other wins. Tell us more what you've got.
Yeah, so worked with a couple, and he was leaving auto manufacturing, and so theirs was a little bit more transformation. His spouse is a realtor, and they wanted to partner, but they didn't want that to be the standard. Oh, we both have real estate licenses, and you go this way, I go that way. And we worked through what that would look like and changed a lot of the vernacular around going from I'm working for and I'm just this to chief of business development in the partnership, and spouse who has been doing it for a long time, chief sales officer. And to see that mindset shift just around the role, and once that mindset shift was made, their trajectory just went off. And it was all around roles and responsibilities and how to do things together, not working against each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Subtle mindset tweak can be all the difference, I guess.
Yeah. It's exciting to see when it happens.
What does a typical engagement with you look like?
So I really like to sit down with somebody for an hour and a half to up to 3 hours for my initial, are we a good fit? And to really learn the person if I don't know them well,
Hmm.
and to learn where they're coming from, but more importantly, where they think they want to go, and
Hmm. Sure.
why, what's going to get there. And so I like spending that time right up front to develop that relationship. Most of the people I work with, we work together twice a month for 60 to 90 minutes, with a couple of other check-ins, and the opportunity to phone a friend when something comes up.
Hmm.
And that's been a really good way. I'm a big fan of homework in coaching sessions. So things that we talk about that we kind of discover together, lay out a game plan for things that need to get done in between sessions, so that we don't coach, put the coach on the shelf for 2 weeks and get back together. There's a lot of actions going on.
Sure.
So
Yeah. What does so you do two 90-minute sessions per month plus little, check-ins here and there in between. What do those 90-minute sessions look like? Are you guys work
um,
like, do you have specific like strategic workbooks that you like worksheets that you work through them with, or is it all just kind of like talk coaching, or what are yours?
it's typically talk coaching. There are times that I will, get, a coachee a book that I think is just going to be really beneficial.
Sure.
And then we might, use some things in that book as some platforms to springboard off of.
Hmm.
Um, but I just feel like everybody is so unique that a worksheet or something that just, it doesn't work for me. I've seen it work for others. I've been coached by somebody who that works for.
Yeah.
But I just like the little bit more organic approach.
Hmm.
And and the guy I told you about with the syndication, he and I meet weekly. That was our plan up front until to really hammer things out. And it's so funny because while every coaching session is different, there's a few questions that he seems to be able to anticipate now, even though I don't think I ask him, because I keep some pretty exhaustive notes.
Uh-huh.
And I'm, man, how did he know I was going to ask, what did you put on the back burner that's just nagging at you, like almost verbatim how I would ask it. So, I attribute that to a really good relationship, but
Sure.
it's kind of funny when that happens.
How funny. That's good. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about some failures that you've seen in your coaching career, and how you've kind of maybe flipped the script on those and turned them into, learning points.
Yeah. First, very first coaching session I went to, I was just ready. I thought I had this, and, went in kind of with this worksheet that I wanted to use up front. And, you know, 10, 15 minutes into trying to use this tool, I realized it, it was not going over well.
Hmm.
And, at first I thought, no, I think this is going to work. I spent a couple more minutes, and I just sat back and I said, this doesn't work for you, does it? And she said, absolutely no. Like
Was it something specific that you were picking up on, or was it just a general nuance?
it was just the conversation didn't flow,
Uh-huh.
and the answers to my questions were very curt.
Mhm.
Like, this isn't at all what I expected. And it was my first time coaching, that person's first time being coached, and we laugh about it now.
Uh-huh.
But like, I left there thinking they're gonna cancel. Like, I'm never gonna, like, This is not going to be my first real client because it's going to be one coaching session deep.
Uh-huh. Did they end up canceling?
No,
Still
yeah,
working with
yeah,
them?
been working with them for 2 years.
Oh, there you go. Nice,
So
very
I recovered okay, I guess.
good. She certainly saw enough value in you to keep you around. That's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
That's great. What recommendations would you have for new coaches who are just getting started?
You know, one of the things that I learned early on was to get comfortable with the white space.
Mm-hmm. I like
And
the way
to,
that sounds.
and to help your coachees or your clients get comfortable with white space.
Mhm.
That pause to let them kind of cultivate their answer and their thoughts isn't really 4 minutes long. It's really like 10 to 15 seconds. But I think we just get so used to conversation flow that sometimes that's a really hard thing to get comfortable with.
Mhm.
So I think that's one big thing. And I think the other is one thing that I didn't do up front was I didn't go after a certain niche. If you wanted to be coached by me, I was going to coach you.
Yeah.
And, and I think if I did it over, I would have really created my avatar for who I wanted to coach a little bit better.
Mhm.
And,
Yep.
and really, my first several clients been in that avatar to
Yeah.
really kind of hone that. And then if I wanted to expand, maybe, adding an avatar or adding a sub, avatar, vice, I'll work with anybody because I'm just anxious to get out and coach.
Yeah. I think first of all, I agree with you completely. Second of all, I think that for a lot of new businesses, coaches included, to niche down and kind of focus in on one avatar or focus in on one product can oftentimes feel like you're, cutting your legs off at the knee, right? Because you're like, I can help all these people. Why would I not? What do you say to the new coach who's who believes that, who thinks that, if I narrow myself down too far, I'm saying no to all this potential business that could be coming my way. I need revenue.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's important, to communicate there is the better you get at your skill, the
Mhm,
easier it is to replicate
mhm,
and easier it is to take on more clients because it's less work.
mhm.
And so while it may seem counterproductive in the very short term, if you look out at the moderate term, the 6 months, vice the 6 weeks, vice the 6 years, if you look out at that time frame and think, okay, if I'm dedicated to a process into a developing this skill, then what I do is going to be so much more efficient and effective.
Mhm. Yeah, I could not agree with that more. I think for coaches and businesses, if you're making under seven figures, you should have one avatar and one service product and just focus on that and rinse and repeat. And
Yeah.
the more you do that, the easier it's going to be, the less time and effort you're going to have to spend. So the big struggle that we have seen at Boxer with coaches is time. Everybody is spending so much time running the business, marketing, promotion, like all, social media, all this stuff, and they're not spending enough time coaching, right? And then they're not spending as much time as they want to spend coaching. And there's a lot of stuff you can do to get to a point where you're coaching more and you're spending less time in the business, more time on the business. But one of those things I couldn't agree with you more is exactly what you just said, which is, focus on something, practice it, repeat it, get better and better at it. And the more you do it, the easier it's going to be to do. And the less you're going to have to, come up with new processes and all this kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And I ask that question to a lot of my clients, like, what is your avatar? And then help them focus that. And then, and that's what got me thinking, wow, I didn't do that, or I didn't at least do that well at all up front. So, I'm coaching it. But boy, I missed the mark, for myself. And so, and I've shared that, like, hey, I screwed this one up. Like, you're an example of it, because here I am sitting with you and you're completely out of what my maybe my desired avatar is, but we've been working together and I think we work well together. So
Sure.
and that, and I think that's the other just kind of that important aspect up front is be authentic and vulnerable. Like, don't be afraid of those two things early on, because admitting with that first client, like, by saying, yeah, this isn't working at all for you, is it? Like, I did not want to say that. I didn't want her to think, wow, I hired a coach that doesn't know what he's doing, right? And but I think that's appreciated. We've got to show that.
I tell you what, man, I think if you went back in time and you saw, if you could see one direction, right? If you could see the different timelines, right? Timeline A, you said, listen, this isn't working for you, is it? And then timeline B, you're just kind of, this isn't really working, but I have to pretend like I'm really good at this because I'm new and I'm nervous and I'm scared, but I don't want her to know. I don't want this client to know. And they have to think that I really know what I'm doing. I think timeline A is going to be the clear winner there, because in that moment of vulnerability, if you also show up from a place of respect and expertise, right? You don't want to act like you don't know what you're doing, but you also want to be honest about things. And like, this is clearly not working for you, is it? Right? I think that's just a winner. I think you saved the relationship by saying that.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny, because I thought about that and that authenticity and vulnerability, and and I kind of said up front, oh, I want to be a leadership coach, and I realized I want to coach leaders. I don't necessarily want to be a leadership coach, so I've matured. But when I think about where I wanted to be when I started, the attributes of a good leader and the character attributes of a good coach are paralleled really closely.
Mm-hmm.
And so it made it easy to pivot from wanting to be a leadership coach to wanting to coach leaders.
And what is the difference between those two things for you?
I think by saying I'm a leadership coach kind of stovepipes a little bit, would narrow my focus as your coach.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas coaching leaders, I'm coaching the person,
Mm-hmm.
not the characteristic.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the big change.
Yeah. And why leaders specifically?
I love seeing people grow, because I joked with people in the Navy that sailors deserve two things. Like, they were a right, not a privilege: good leadership and good coffee. And so, I believe that if we coach leaders and help make them more effective, and you might be, a brand new startup and you're a one-person operation, you're still a leader because you're out engaging, developing clients, creating relationships. I think those are all leader qualities. And so I think if we help coach that person early on, it helps make them way more effective as they grow in whatever they're doing.
Yeah. No. I like it. Can you talk to us a little bit about the people always mindset? What does that mean to you?
Yeah. So I could take you back to 2002, and I was a young lieutenant in the Navy, and I was the officer in charge of an aviation support unit, and we were undergoing this major transformation. And I had a 24/7 operation, 140 sailors. They operated around the clock every day. And we were expected to put in another 40 hours a week on this transformation. And, the two guys that were coming down from, the organization that was putting this into Naval Air, basically, they said to me one day, people always, mission first.
Mm-hmm.
And what they meant by that was people are always going to bear the brunt of getting the mission done.
Mm-hmm.
And they did not mean you should take care of your people always.
Mm-hmm.
And just their use of that phrase just irritated me. And from that day forward, I was like, people should always be at the forefront of why we're doing things and what we're doing. And they should understand what we're doing. And we should care about them as real people first, not just sailors or not just technicians or, pick a job description, but we should care about them as real people who have lives outside of coming to work. And so when I was creating, the name for my business, like it naturally fell into place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like it. That's, it's a great name, I think, for a business. It reminds me a little bit of, it just kind of makes me think about Simon Sinek's book, Leaders Eat Last.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just putting the people.
And I think we see that with really good organizations, where, when we take good care of the people and we prioritize them, man, they're happy. They do good work and they work efficiently, and they don't sit on their smartphone looking for another job, while they're, 9 to 5, and that's what we should all want.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Todd, I have to ask, the photograph of the ship behind you, was that yours? Is that
It's
something?
not. So my one surface ship that I was on was the USS Camden. It was a auxiliary ship. We carried fuel, food, and bombs. That is the very first USS Camden, and that photo was taken in Boston in 1919 in the original frame. I came across that and just had to add it to my wall.
That's very cool. It looks like an old timey photo from here, but there's also kind of like
some glare. Yeah, I just love having it. Around this room, there's some submarines, and there's a World War II submarine that's sitting on the bottom with the story of the Medal of Honor winner captain, when he took command. So I really love kind of the history I have in this room with me.
Very cool. Very cool. I see a little rapier or a sword on the desk there. Is that yours?
Yeah. My best friend was a master chief when I commissioned. I was a chief, so he gave me a replica of the Naval Officer sword. It's a letter opener. I've had it on every desk of mine since then. I took it to sea on my ship, on submarine with me, just as a reminder of commitment to relationships and people. So
people always. That's awesome, Todd. Is there anything else that you would like to talk about that we haven't touched upon yet?
No, I think
we still have plenty of time. So if you've got anything that you want to chat about.
I think some of the questions I get asked, when I get asked, who should be coached?
Mm-hmm.
And my answer is typically yes. I think so many people they think, oh, well, having a coach, they think of consultant a lot. And I get asked then, what's the difference between a coach and a consultant? And I tell them, if I'm your consultant, I'm working really hard. If I'm your coach, you're working really hard. And a coach, I think can help unstick and unlock some things that aren't being done.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think everybody should look, at least have the exploratory conversation with the coach. And if they're good, but they're not right for you, they'll recommend somebody else. I've turned people away knowing that I wasn't the right person to coach them, but said, hey, I've got 2 or 3 other people I think you should talk to, and in this order. I think coaching is right for you. I just don't think we're going to be the right fit. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think there's a lot right with that. But I think people that have never been coached have no idea of some of the potential that they could reach with a coach.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are wise words. I know for me, it's been life-changing, having had, a number of different coaches over the last several years of my life, 5 years or so. It's been huge. And if you've never tried it before, it's worth trying at least once. And I think if you find the right coach, if you find a coach with integrity, if you find a coach who's willing to say, I'm not the right coach for you, if it's not a good fit, right? Because that's not always easy to do, but it's certainly the integrity move. But yeah, for me, coaching has been utterly life-changing.
Yeah, I'm working with I'll say young lady. She's young compared to me, right? And she came to me back in the fall and said, I need a better executive presence. I said, well, let's, so we talked, and we've been working together. Just, announced she accepted an offer, as an executive with a healthcare company. So she's kind of out of that entrepreneur avatar, but she was in that emerging leader, that I really have a heart for. And she was stuck and couldn't get beyond. And so that I need executive presence really expanded much wider than just that one thing. But seeing where we've gotten from last fall to now, and how she views herself, and how she views herself as a leader, and how she views people that she works with. I wish people could see a snapshot of the before and after. You see those on the weight loss challenges. I wish there was a way to show that in coaching, as a visual representation, because I think a lot more people would say, yeah, I want to try that.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that I can think of, I don't know if have you ever done like 360 assessments? I mean, that's kind of a snapshot in time, right? You get one before and after, and you kind of get an idea of the environment, how the environment feels about that person.
Yeah. And there's even, there's some books, I think Leadership 2.0 has kind of a personal assessment, but you can also ask somebody else to do it. So even if you don't want to go through the full 360, and I've used that with somebody who I coached that was really working on understanding how they led. I said, well, let's do this first before we go out and, go heavy. And we got so much out of that, that 8-page report we dug into for months, and, refined and fine-tuned, and polished. And it was really fun, so there's a lot of really cool, inexpensive tools even. And not to say that you can't do that on your own, even but I think you'll find that having somebody, hold up a mirror and maybe ask some hard questions makes it that process a little bit faster and more beneficial.
Yeah. And then you say that quiz is in Leadership 2.0?
It is. So it's a download, you go online and you do it. That's one of the books I've given to a few people and said, I want you to do this and send me the report, and by the time they show up, I've got this 8-page report with a lot of red ink and a lot of, questions and thoughts. And that's been a fun tool to use, for the cost of them reading a book and doing, the free assessment that comes along with the book.
Yeah. Nice. Very good. Well, Todd, where can our viewers and listeners connect with you online?
Yeah, so I have a website, peoplealwaysmindset.com. Created a Facebook page, for People Always Mindset. I have a LinkedIn page, and I'm on LinkedIn, Todd Sullivan. kind of my preferred social media of choice, but I've realized that I was being short-sighted by only having that one. So,
Mhm.
I'll tell the listeners, I love creating relationships. So I'd love to talk with someone and see if we're the right fit for each other. I think that's so important, that alignment and fit of a coach and a client. Because if it's really good, I think you can get a really good outcome. If it's not so good, you can get a good, at best outcome. So
Sure.
spend the time up front, vetting who you want to coach you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's super important for sure. For sure. You want to make sure it's a good fit. And Todd, I would be remiss if I neglected to mention your offer for podcast listeners or viewers. You're offering them half off the first month of coaching with a 3-month agreement. Is that correct?
It is. So, I love what I'm doing, and I want to show the value. And I like to have a 3-month agreement up front, because I think 3 months is needed. But I don't want to sign anybody into a long-term one. I want to earn the right to be your coach every month.
Sure. Love it. So you heard it here, guys. Go check out peoplealwaysmindset.com and get in touch with Todd. Todd, man, this has been fantastic. I appreciate your time.
I appreciate you having me, Michael, and hope the rest of your day and week goes great.
Thank you, brother, and thank you for your service.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you also to our listeners and viewers. And yeah, that's a wrap for this one. We'll see you next time. Cheers.